Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to another live streaming of Basic Transfer Pricing Philippines. Our topic this afternoon is about the taxation of the digitalized economy. No, this is our new schedule because we cannot continue with the 8 o'clock schedule that we have previously, no? Kasi hindi na kaya. That's very late at night. I would like to shout out sa ating mga viewers, no? And for how many months, more than 2 months, that we did not have any live streaming. And because of health reasons, and we have to say thank you na ngayon, nakabalik na tayo ulit, no? And since the issue on digitalization is very much around, okay, we cannot do away with discussing about the digitalization also when it comes to taxation. Why? Because this is our work, no? Just like me, I am involved in giving services to my client in the field of taxation. That's why yung taxation of the digitalized economy is very much important, and it affects me in my services to my clients, no? So much also that the clients are also affected because they have to cope up with the digitalized economy in order to also to thrive their business and to be competitive, no? So we cannot do away with this digitalization because it's already here. And there are so many articles that we read about it, no? One of which, ito yung maganda, the impact of taxation on the digital economy, no? Actually, the impact of taxation in the digital economy, some of the countries are not yet ready, no? Why? Just like I see, hindi ko naman sa, that's just my own opinion. As I can see here in the Philippines, that taxpayers, both taxpayers and tax authorities are not so prepared for this kind of tax environment. Why? Because just like the social media influencers, the tax authority, in the part of the tax authorities, there is no guided criteria or set of rules that these media influencers should follow. And also, there is in the part of the social media influencers, they're telling also na we're just very small, so we don't want to register, we don't want to follow, or there are many loopholes when it comes to compliance, no? So that in terms of tax compliance, the impact of of taxation on digitalized economy is yet to be refined, or should be adopted by both the taxpayers and the tax authorities. So both parties should make their own initiative, no, in order to put in place everything on the part of the taxpayers and also in the part of the authority. No? Because if there is no improvement on the law, the domestic legislation when it comes to digitalization, then the implementation or the taxation of this example, only the media influencers, will not be very much complied with, no? So the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, has much initiatives on the tax challenges arising from digitalization, no? So they have the blueprint on that, and what are the taxes, since it becomes complicated when the digitalization comes in. It's very, very complicated for both the multinational companies and also for the tax authorities. Also, how does both parties will adapt to these new challenges. That's why the inclusive framework on BEPS have this study on base erosion and profit shifting and the challenges from digitalization and how does this new kind of taxes be adapted, no? So they adapted the globe, no, which is the objective is to ensure the multinational pay a minimum level of tax on their profits regardless of their headquarters or location, and put a full stop on jurisdictions' unsustainable race to rock bottom taxes. Kasi jurisdictional ang enforcement ng taxes, no? If it is not your territory, hindi ka pwedeng mag-impose ng tax. That's why itong globe, gusto nila that i-put na into stop yung jurisdictions, no? So levy of the global minimum tax, yan, may levy of global minimum tax requires a comparison between the effective tax rate of multinational groups with the globe tax rate, which is currently a minimum of 15%. So yung globe, parang worldwide tax yan, no? Rate of 15%, but you should compare it with the effective tax rate ng multinational groups with the globe tax rate na 15%, no? So during the policy formulation for globe rules, several proposals were floated for computation of effective tax rate. The worldwide blending, jurisdictional blending. When we say blending, we have it work together, no? Magbi-blend siya. Jurisdictional blending, so both jurisdictions parang same na, one. Or entity blending, no? So the U.S. Global Intangible Low Tax Income, which is the GLT, which is in the U.S. regime, applies the 90% high tax exemption based on a more granular tested unit concept and applies the worldwide blending for low tax income o balanced tested units, no? Ito yung sa GLT, no? Yung US Global Intangible Low Tax Income. US ang nag-alap niyan. So hand in hand with the globe, which is the initiative of the OECD. Okay? So for globe rules, the broad-based worldwide blending could have been simpler to comply with and administer yung globe, no? To initiative ng OECD. And then the same time, the granular entity level approach could have been a nightmare for stakeholders. Bakit kaya naging nightmare? Sa bagay, ang taxes talaga, usually, nightmare yan ng mga taxpayers, no? Why? Because the burden, no, in paying those taxes. Not only the payment, but also the reporting, no? And also beyond the globe policy objectives, which was never to put an entity-wise floor rate, no? With the jurisdictional blending approach, globe rules seek to achieve the best of both worlds, no? Which is sometimes sabi ng ibang mga observer, which is impossible, no? So, the globe rules is the ones adopted by this OECD to face the challenges of the digital economy, no? So under the jurisdictional blending approach, the globe tax liability will arise when the effective tax rate of a particular jurisdiction, including stateless jurisdiction. Ano yung mga stateless jurisdiction? The one who claim that they don't belong to any state, no? Parang stateless sila. Why? Because if they don't belong to any states, no one state will tax them, no, or have jurisdiction to tax them. As we will see, as advocated by some of the groups, no, yung mga stateless entity or stateless citizen. As we will see later, in which the multinational group operates is below the globe minimum rate. What is the globe minimum rate? 15%. So it may sound simple. The jurisdictional effective tax rate computation involves a series of steps, no? With each step governed by a web of intricate rules. Actually, I read the Globe, no? Ito yung challenges. Hindi ko pa kumbaga sa pagkain, I cannot yet parang ma-appreciate ko yung taste, no? Yung nagsisink in sa akin yung taste of the globe. Why? Parang ang hirap niya intindihin, no? So, the determination of the jurisdictional effective tax rate under the globe rules involves 3 steps, no? And what are the 3 steps? Identify first, no, the constituent entities under base jurisdiction, no? So who are the constituent entities? Usually multinational companies, no? Kasi they are group of companies. And then second, assigning income and covered taxes to its jurisdiction. Parang profit split nga lang din daw sabi ng iba itong globe rules, no? Why? Because sabi dito, yung second is you have to assign the income and covered taxes to its jurisdiction. So parang profit split din under the transfer pricing, no? So the third is computing the jurisdictional effective tax rate. So how much is the jurisdictional effective tax rate? Compare it with the globe rule of 15%, no? Okay. So when you try to look at the globe, meron silang sinasabi na carry forward and carve out. So what are these carry forward rules and the carve out? No? So the carry forward rules are designed to smooth the effective tax rate of the jurisdiction over a period of time. No? Irrespective of whether fluctuations in the effective tax rate arise from temporary or permanent differences. No? So globe regime would operate in a similar fashion as the alternative minimum tax. Oh, so yun na yung sabi ko Alternative minimum tax applied to U.S. corporation prior to U.S. tax reform in 2017. No? Kasi ngayon, ang U.S. GILTI na. No? Yung, ano bang ibig sabihin ng GILTI? Ito yung gross low tax, ano yun, intangibles, no? Gross income on low tax intangibles. No? And then, when the tax is paid in jurisdiction in excess of the minimum rate, the excess is carried forward as a local tax carry forward. So ito pala yung carry forward na sinasabi nila. This can be called upon when the jurisdiction's effective tax rate falls below the minimum rate. No? Ano yung minimum rate? The 15%. No? Ensuring local tax volatility does not trigger a top-up tax liability in the low years. So, yun yung mga bagong terms sa taxation ng digital economy, no? Yung mga top-up tax, no? So, on top of the tax, ito yung impose mo. So, the globe tax base includes formulaic substance. Actually, may mga computations dito, no? That siguro discuss din natin in some other time. And calculated as percentage of payroll cost, percentage of tangible asset depreciation. No? So the rationale behind this is that the profits generated from tangible assets and personnel in a jurisdiction are likely to pose a base erosion risk. Why risk? Because the base, no, the taxable base will be eroded or will be decreased. No? So what percentages of payroll cost and tangible asset depreciation are taken into account in determining the carve-out is again a decision reserved for the politicians. Why politicians? Because usually sila yung mga lawmakers, no? Nagiging congressman, and then just like in the Philippines who craft our tax laws. The tax laws in the Philippines emanates from the Congress, no, the lower house, and that lower house are composed of congressmen, so they are politicians. May mga questions? May viewers tayo? So thank you very much. Shout out po sa ating mga viewers. Actually, we'd like to say thank you talaga because we're able to be back in our live streaming. Imagine, we lost for, or are lost for more than 2 months, no? And at that time, I'm not sure na makabalik pa, ha? Kasi, just like I told you, yung kasabayan ko na nagkasakit, talagang magpo 40 days na daw sa November 28 eh. No? Ang bilis. No? Talagang he were not able to make it. Namatay talaga. No? Eh tayo naman humihinga-hinga pa. Kahit kahit hinihingal, no? Humihinga-hinga pa. And then, thank you, Lord. No? Okay. So, what is this estimated tax rate and the top-up tax? Ako iniisa-isa ko lang kasi ang hirap talaga intindihin ng taxation of the digital economy. Iniisa-isa ko lang. Why? Kasi pagka sinachop-chop lang. Kasi once biglain mo, hindi mo ma-absorb, no? There are 3 volumes itong tax challenges from digitized economy. So, hindi natin kaya. But there are so many examples. And in my future discussions with you, I will try some examples and some computations, no? So, estimated tax rate and the top-up tax, no? So, the globe estimated tax rate is determined by dividing the amount, no? So, ito na. You are going to divide the amount covered taxes by the amount of income as determined under the globe rules, no? So the globe is estimated tax rate is calculated on a jurisdictional. So sinong nag-enjoy nitong jurisdictional? The tax authorities, jurisdictional sila. The jurisdictional ATR computation requires assignment of the income and taxes among the jurisdiction in which the MNA operates and to which it pays taxes. No? Kasi, nasaan ba yung MNA? Saan siya registered? Doon siya nagbabayad ng taxes, no? And usually, may mga MNEs situated in tax haven countries lower taxes, no? So, generally, the income of the MNE is assigned to the jurisdiction of the constituent entity that earned the income with its permanent establishment being treated as a separate constituent entity. No? When we say constituent entity, member of the group. And when we say permanent establishment, these are considered branches depending on the activity. No? And right now, yung mga sinasabi nila na ancillary activity lang, not considered as permanent establishment, medyo na-clarify na noong 2020. No? So this permanent establishment, once the company set up some activities and it is considered as permanent establishment, that will become taxable, no? And that permanent establishment should pay tax where it is located. That's why sinasabi nila dito na jurisdictional. The corresponding covered taxes on that income are then assigned to the jurisdiction that has been allocated the income. Oh, so allocated. Kaya nga parang kasabi ko parang profit split. Why allocated? Kasi income of the group eh. No? So special rules address the treatment of entities that are tax transparent and do not have any tax jurisdiction of residence. No? Actually, the taxation of the digitized economy has so many challenges to face pa, no? Considering the very complicated environment brought about by the digitized economy. But of course, our researcher, the persons who initiated to make or improve these tax rules natin are also having a continuing effort to put this legislation in place, no? Para hindi mahirap. There are so many issues that has been addressed already by the OECD, and one of which is this taxation of the digitized economy. No? So, the top-up tax, what is this top-up tax? Computed in relation to the M&E profits is either collected through the application of the IIR, no, income inclusion rule, in a parent jurisdiction, no, or gives rise to a corresponding adjustment under the UTPR or the undertax payment rule in a UTPR jurisdiction. As mentioned previously, the income inclusion rule takes priority over the undertax payment rule. So yun yung mga terms na makikita natin, no, sa bagong taxation. Ay, hindi na yan taxation na local lang, no? Taxation of the world na ito. As mentioned previously, the income inclusion rule takes priority over the undertax payment rule. Therefore, no top-up tax may be treated as giving rise to an adjustment under the undertax payment rule in respect of a constituent entity that is controlled directly or indirectly by a foreign constituent entity that is subject to the income inclusion rule in accordance with the GLOBE rules. So when the undertax payment rule applies, the undertax payment rule or several other jurisdictions could, however, apply in relations to the income of a single low tax constituent entity, and this chapter explains how these undertax payment rules are to be coordinated so to minimize complicity and avoid double taxation. So in crafting their legislations, no? So international legislation as that, they are also avoiding double taxation, no? Because it might be that the result of the crafting of these regulations will result to double taxation. So income inclusion rule, ano yung income inclusion rule in the taxation of digitized community, no? In the GLOBE rules. So the global minimum tax regime imposed by the GLOBE rules is principally imposed by the income inclusion rule, no? So siya talaga ang una sa GLOBE rules, no? So this rule broadly operates in a similar fashion to existing CFC, CFC, Controlled Foreign Corporations regimes. However, unlike a lot of those CFC regimes, it is solely concerned with low tax outcomes, not how taxpayers achieve those low tax outcome, no, sa income inclusion rule. So the income inclusion rule adopts a top-down approach, no? So whereby the jurisdiction in which the ultimate parent entity is resident has the primary right to exercise taking right over income in a low tax jurisdiction. If the ultimate parent entity is resident in a jurisdiction that has not implemented the income inclusion rule, then the taxing rights are passed down the chain of ownership until they reach an entity resident in a jurisdiction that has implemented it. So yun yung income inclusion rule. So the exception to this rule are split ownership scenarios where certain percentage, the paper suggests 10%, or more of the equity interest being interest that gives right to profits in a constituent entity are held by person outside the relevant M&E group. Where these scenarios arise, the GLOBE rules operate to ensure as much income as possible in tax through the income inclusion rule. By allocating initial taxing rights to the intermediate parent entity, no, or the entity in the chain of ownership immediately prior to the point at which interest diverges. Yan sinasabi nila, chain of ownership. Why? Kasi ang corporate structure or yung organizational structure ng multinational groups if you try to look at, meron silang parent entity, meron pa ring uh, ultimate parent entity. Meron pa silang mga surrogates, no? And then, dito, meron pang orphan entities, no? So, parang naiwan. Wala na, nakalabas siya doon sa corporate structures or organizational structure ng group. No? Kaya naging orphan entity siya. Just like stateless citizen or this stateless citizen, nobody or no state can have jurisdiction to him or to her because siya nga ay stateless person, no? Ano yung stateless person? Anong advantages? Hindi siya pwedeng hulihin or enforce yung taxation law sa kanya, no? So, going back to the income inclusion rule, the blueprint also suggests that additional rules will need to be developed in order to ensure the integrity and neutrality of the income inclusion rules is maintained. So the blueprint suggests this rule could apply to a scenario where a jurisdiction provides incentives to an M&E group to relocate their ultimate parent's entity to its jurisdiction, and the incentives offered compensate the group for the additional tax payable under the income inclusion rule. No? So tax-motivated inversion are another area where the blueprint suggests further rules may need to be developed. No? So yun yung income inclusion rule. It adopts a top-down approach where the jurisdiction in which the ultimate parent entity is resident has the primary right to exercise taxing rights over income in low-tax jurisdiction. Okay. So we have the under-tax payment rule. What does this mean in the taxation of digitized community? No? So under the tax payment rule, the aim of under-tax payment rule is to take as yet unaddressed under taxation of income in a low-tax jurisdiction and allocate the taxing rights over the income to other jurisdictions. No? Okay. How? Na letter A, by first assigning the top-up tax due to those group entities who make direct payments to the low-tax jurisdiction. No? So, yun yung objective niya. Second, or letter B, if necessary, assigning and remaining top-up tax to those group entities who do not make a direct payment to the relevant low-tax jurisdiction that are a net intra-group deduction position. No? Okay. So the under-tax payment rule act in a supporting role to the income inclusion rule. Examples of when the under-tax payment rule would be triggered include where group entities are located in low-tax jurisdiction which are owned directly and indirectly by entity resident. The jurisdiction in which the ultimate parent entity of the M&E group is resident is a low-tax jurisdiction, in which case there are no entities in the chain of ownership that can apply the income inclusion rule. No? Kaya ito na yung under tax payment rule. Which jurisdiction should be allocated taxing rights? No? Where there is interaction between the income inclusion rule and the under tax payment rule due to split ownership of a constituent entity can be complete. No? So the blueprint identifies a number of these potential interaction and recommendations, no? That additional rule be developed to address these companies. Okay. So those are the definitions, no, ng ating under tax payment rule. And Next, we have the subject to tax rule. No? So what is this subject to tax rule? The premise behind the subject to tax rule is simple, namely where a jurisdiction does not exercise its taxing rights over the receipt of certain payments to an adequate extent, the jurisdiction of the payer has the right to claw back to those taxing rights. No? Negating in part the relief, it follows for the deduction of the payment for local taxes. So yun yung subject to tax rule. Unlike the income inclusion rule or the undertax payment rule, the subject to tax rule is not concerned with the estimated tax rule. No? So instead, it looks to the nominal tax rate that applies to certain payments between connected persons. No? So switchover rule. The switchover rule would be a mechanism for enabling jurisdiction to overturn treaty obligations where they have committed to exempting amounts, no? So attributable to a foreign permanent establishment under a double tax treaty agreed with another state. Okay. So the switchover rule is necessary because exempt branches are treated as constituent entities. Also, under the globe rules, and therefore, essentially treated like subsidiaries. No? This ensures that the income of exempt branches cannot be blended with higher tax income in the head office jurisdiction. Okay. Under the top-down approach applied by the income inclusion rule, where no entity in the claim of ownership is resident in a territory that has implemented the income inclusion rule, taxing rights could be handed to the head office jurisdiction of an entity to apply them to the income of a branch established in a low tax jurisdiction. Okay, so another topic that we want to discuss to you is this artificial intelligence, no? Kasi if you try to look at the outlook no, ng OECD o the digital economy, so it is there na may mga observation sila about artificial intelligence, about blockchain, and about quantum computing, no? So, wait lang tayo dyan sa taxation or digitized economy because aralin pa talaga natin yan. And right now, hindi pa rin naman in place lahat dyan, no? But more or less, nandyan na, may mga magbabago na lang dyan sa mga presentation siguro, no? So, artificial intelligence. This is something that we have to watch for in the global or digitized economy, no? So, what are these artificial intelligence? This is the ability of a digital computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings, no? Kaya ang digital computer napakatalino din, no? The term is frequently applied to the project of developing systems endowed with the intellectual processes, no? Characteristics of humans, such as the ability to reason. Oh, grabe, no? Kayang-kaya ng artificial intelligence. Discover meaning, generalize or learn from past experience. Since the development of the digital computer in the 1940s, it has been demonstrated that the computers can be programmed to carry out very complex tasks. Oh, imagine very complex task can be um, done by the computer, no? For example, discovering proof for mathematical theorems or playing chess, no? So with great proficiency. Still, despite continuing advances in computer processing speed and memory capacity, there are as yet no programs that can match human flexibility over wider domain or in task requiring much everyday knowledge. On the other hand, some wider domains, some programs have attained the performance level of human experts and professionals in performing certain specific tasks, so that artificial intelligence in this limited sense is found in applications as diverse as medical diagnosis, no? Computer search engineer and voice or handwriting recognition. Okay. Another area that we are going to follow also is the blockchain, no? So blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change back or cheat the system, no? So yun. A blockchain is essentially a digital ledger of transaction that is duplicated and distributed across the entire work of computer system or the blockchain. Each part in the chain contains a number of transactions, and every time a new transaction occurs on the blockchain, a record of the transaction is added to every participant's ledger. The decentralized database managed by multiple participants is known as distributed ledger technology, no? So meron ng bago sa blockchain, no? Distributed ledger technology. So blockchain is a type of DLT in which transactions are recorded with a immutable cryptographic signature called a hash, no? So this means if one block was changed, it would be immediately apparent it had been tampered with. If hackers wanted to corrupt a blockchain system, they would have to change every block in the chain across all of the distributed version of the chain. Okay, so let's now go to quantum computing. Quantum computing is an area of computing focused on developing computer technology and on the principles of quantum theory, no? Which explains the behavior of energy and material on the atomic and subatomic levels, no? Computers used today can only encode information in bits that take the value of 1 or 0, asserting their ability. Okay, so quantum computing, on the other hand, uses quantum bits or qubits. It harnesses the unique ability of subatomic particles that allow them to exist in more than one state, no? 1 and 0 at the same time. Okay, so we will discuss next week. We will discuss again transfer pricing cases, but today the impact of this taxation on the digital economy has not yet been felt, no? Because of the very early implementation. So next year, hopefully, no, if this taxation of digital economy is already in place, then it will be easy for both the tax practitioners and the taxpayers, no? So with that, I would like to say thank you very much. May question? Okay. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much and have a good weekend, no? Kasi Friday ngayon, bukas is Saturday na. So, I would like to greet everyone. I would like to say thank you and have a very great day or weekend ahead of us. No? So, thank you very much and good evening na. Okay? Thank you.